this was my bus route. As I remember it, everything is still perfectly frozen in time, just like this. Imagine it like a pause button, though I may never return, though it shuttles along without me. In the elusiveness of place, Doreen Massey describes space as the simultaneity of stories so far. But how do we define stories? Articulate so far. Nodes of narrative swaying out from the figure like frayed globes of dandelion. I suppose what I crave is the intimacy, the watershed of a balloon static closeness, in an age where touch is shunned, charged a threat, and all we have left is the looking. One of the things that I loved most about Google Maps when I moved to England was how I could rely on it. If I simply hovered my thumb, I could see things that were hidden, at least to me. When I needed to purchase bedding, I could just search and it would tell me Debenhams, John Lewis, Dunelm, everything draped beneath a digital blanket of street names and arrows. Now, as I look, I'm fascinated by the latency. I can see into the past like a treasure map, permanently closed, or things that were once there but now are gone, vice versa. All the bodies, my ghostly body, brushing up against that digital performance of closeness, though you never get a face. Sometimes I swear I catch the outline of someone I love, could love, maybe do love in some strange way. And the confusion too. What is that? A dog? I can stop, zoom in. The poetics of care sometimes can only be seen in retrospect. Is care a welcome kind of surveillance? Can surveillance ever be used for care? Or little omens. I have a dog that looks just like that, though he didn't exist then. I was in many places at once. Physically in Norwich, England, but my mind, my news feed, my WhatsApp messages in Pennsylvania, DC, Virginia. I become most attuned to my geography when I am detached from it. The last time I walked this path, I was tremendously ill. Gave my body up to the scans, machines, misfired diagnoses. I wouldn't call that care, though I would call it a surveillance of wellness. During the pandemic, I've become especially aware of the auto-dictact of wellness, the demand of every email sign-off. Be well. Be well, be well, be well. A mantra, demand, request without a question mark. Similar to farewell, which is also like an omen, as though the performative words can ritualize a force field around a person's body. Goodbye and farewell is the discourse of wellness, an archaic artifact. But in the digital, I'm just floating shoulders and a head. Here, with you, I'm a ghosted body, specter of a voice. You know, this isn't even really my voice, but the binary code that transmits vibrations into your headphones, into your eardrum. An economy of vibrations transposed haphazardly from one place to another, to anywhere really. So connection is vibration, is touch. On my last day, I caught a 25-line bus to the Millennium Library to return my books in and searched the COVID numbers for Norfolk County, then Essex, Surrey, opened a new tab to search United States, Pennsylvania, Lehigh, Carbon, hospital numbers, test numbers, news articles, percentages, sanitized data, and hands. I understand a place best through its invisible numbers, viruses, than I do through my physical presence. Here's a new scene. I Zoom with my friend every week or so. We talk about our walks, and I imagine what it'd be like to be there, in a bodied, disembodied space. Sometimes I have this recurring dream where I'm treading through a river, upstream, algae pocketing sores on my bare legs, and in flailing limbs I'm trying to reach the other side, where he sits on the edge and dangles the soles of his shoes across the surface, skimming the water tension, teasing percussive notes from the river. Now imagine a stream of data, something like this. My voice moves into the code, dissolves into it, is puckered into zeros and speared into ones, is brought back to life on another edge. But I'm still here watching this self separate into another self like axolotl lizard regrowing its tail. I'm still here buffering into someone else's stream. My voice isn't really my voice. I represent myself over and over again. Do you typically see yourself in your dreams? Where are you positioned? The more I used Zoom, the more I began hovering outside of my position. The more I lingered in mirrors or glossy surfaces of blank, black computer screens. Maybe this is what it's like to have children. I wouldn't know. We might as well be here as anywhere. The enclosed home space is nothing more than a green screen of desires, and Google Earth its instrument, contained adventure, simulated presence, the here, not here projection. When the pandemic began, everyone took up walking. It was the newest craze. Paired walking, distanced walking, through trails, parks, beaches, enclosed vehicles and planes were off limits. In some ways, we became more in touch with our body and the world around us. In other ways, we knew nothing at all, as the molecules circulated from one breath to a body to another. There's something intimate about absence, the desire to reach through a screen and blur yourself, blend into somewhere, someone else. Like late night car rides as a kid when I'd stare into the lit windows to spy families settling into the dinner table, turning off the television. You can't help but wonder where their minds are. This location isn't necessarily new, but our reach, perhaps, is. Where once we had to walk, sail, drive to the people we wanted to see, now I can zoom into their most private locales. In the back of a work call is a colleague's bed, sky blue duvet and orange throw. My students, with their childhood posters and background voices. The clamor of pots and pans. Does this make me feel more connected or distant, warm or cold? Every emotion becomes a glitch, the body's lack of touch sparking my circuits into anxiety, fear, frustration. I read on Facebook that afferent nerve endings without ambient touch can signal social rejection to our left-behind body. I take baths, adopt a dog. In an attempt to counter this disconnection, I place myself within everyone's world, take the squirming yellow figure and drop it atop the map, randomly within the boundary of the town or city. These are the Google Walks for everyone I interacted with over 2020. Call it ritual, call it artistic practice, guilty pleasure, transgression, nostalgia, derive for a pandemic age. Scholar Karen Till says, spectral traces may provide us with a language of belonging, even as such traces speak of past loss. For Till, this act of personal remapping moves through the materiality of past and present. It unlocks radical spatial imaginaries, alternatives to the hegemonic data-driven mapping processes, of which Google Earth is one. New websites emerge online for virtual walks through museums, immersive walks through nature for those who are trapped in the city. But the traces this body leaves behind are carbon emissions, pollutant from factory smog to ozone peel to alveolar sacs of your branching lungs, everything cycling together, personal, precarious, a litter of shed virus, glinting like foil in the microscopic sunbeam, alongside digital debris. This walking, a form of reconnection, of rewiring and weaving stories, snippets of interaction, tenderness, and proximity, tearing back place, making space for each other. The cursor's hand dawdling over glass, capturing a first date, a birthday, a last cup of coffee, and somewhere in here, a censored face that reminds me starkly of my own.